Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Midwestern Marx podcast. Carlos is off teaching a class right now, so it's just going to be me and extra special guest here, JVaccai from TikTok, hardcore Marxist man, becoming a teacher. You want to introduce yourself a little bit, Jay?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on Midwestern Marx. I've been a fan for a good amount of time, and yeah, I'm on TikTok at JVaccai. I'm studying to be a teacher. I graduate this semester. So at the end of this semester, I'll be graduated from the University of Michigan and teaching at a high school, maybe near you, whoever's watching it. I don't know. Probably staying in the Midwest though. But yeah.
Nice. Indoctrinating the children.
I do what I can, really just quick side thing with that. It's not even like about indoctrinating. It's really funny because I've had people watch me and make sure I'm not like spinning things my way. And the coolest part about it is that Michael Parenti said it best. Reality is Marxist, and I don't have to push an agenda. I really don't. I just have to make the kids ask questions. So instead of painting historical figures as heroes, as these American imperialists, I'm like, do you guys think that was okay? You guys think that was right? And then unanimously every time, it's like, no. And I'm like, okay, keep that in mind as we keep studying. That's really all you got to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the method, right? Like historical materialism, you're teaching history. If you teach history using Marx's method, it just makes sense. It's like reality works this way. And that's what Parenti does. He doesn't say I'm a Marxist. He's like, every time I put two and two together, someone says, oh, Marx, you're a Marxist. He's like, wow, this Marx guy must have been pretty smart. It's like,
yeah, that's a really great part because I feel like that's how it worked for me. Right, like studying in college to be a history teacher, it wasn't something that like, oh, I am set out to be this thing. It was more of like, I have these beliefs, I just don't know how to put it into an analysis. And like through studying, it was like, oh wait, there already is a thing for this. And so it was a sigh of relief really that I could actually say that, because up until then I would be like, I'm independent.
right.
I didn't know how to be, but.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was studying geopolitics and imperialism, and one of the first books I read was Jason Hickel's The Divide, just about the wealth gap between the global south and how it formed. And I was just like independent for like 3 years, and then I found Marxism. I'm like, oh, someone like predicted that all this stuff was going to happen, and it's capitalism's fault.
Yeah.
From you, you're told your whole life, don't read Marx, there's nothing good in there. And you read it, and it's like, this explains everything. But
yeah, and I don't want to I 100% agree. I will say, especially to you like younger viewers, like Das Kapital is hard to get through. Like, don't feel ashamed when you read Das Kapital and be like, oh, well, I don't understand it. It's like, dude, that book is the densest one you can read.
Sucks. I understand about a fourth of it.
yeah, it's important to like. I've been telling some people on TikTok too, like, you don't have to read theory, and I think like that's the coolest part. Like, it can be done with life experience. And just before we really get into our topics today, I'm teaching at a low income school, so to speak, out in the suburbs of Detroit. Not even the suburbs, just like the outskirts of Detroit. And half my students have jobs that they're trying to help their parents with because their parents lost their jobs because of COVID. I have 2 students who lost parents throughout COVID. These are 16-year-old kids trying to put money on the table. And here I am asking them to care about school. And I'm like, they already know capitalism doesn't work, and like it's heartbreaking. I think if you have any level of empathy and you're trying to get into politics to make the world a better place, it hurts to watch a 16-year-old be like, hey, Mr. J, I can't come to class today because I'm at a construction site with my dad. I got to help him work. What world are we living in, man? And then you wonder why, we're slipping in education. It's because these kids can't afford, public school kids can't afford to take time to do school. So it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And I saw the same thing at college, the higher income kids were all right, and like my Wi-Fi shut off during the pandemic, and I had to move houses, it was just terrible because of financial reasons, and it's like there's no reason for this. But to change course a lot, I guess, we have an idea. We want to set up a red gym So we're going to train martial arts, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all of it, lifting, and then union members train free. As long as you're like a card-carrying communist and you're in a union, you can come to the gym and train for free. As soon as Midwestern Marx hits enough Patreon supporters, we're doing it. We're going for it.
Oh, dude, sign me up. Some fun tidbits on that. I actually have I don't want to get up and leave across the room to go grab it, but across the room I have a pair of Ivan Drago boxing shorts. They're like some of my favorite shorts to box in from like Rocky IV. And I actually can credit Rocky IV as a 10-year-old. I saw it when I was 10, and when I saw it, I was like, I want to box like Ivan Drago. Not like Rocky. I was like, I want to be like Ivan Drago. And ever since then, been into boxing. So when you mentioned Red Gym one time, we were texting, I was like, yes, absolutely. That would be the sickest thing. And I think it's kind of cool because, and I've got a little bit of hate for this, but hopefully I can explain myself better in this. I feel like it's important to balance your body, mind, and soul. Like we as humans are a trinity. And when you're balancing your body along with your mind, along with your soul, you're keeping all those things in check. So, and one of those pillars is pushing your body, setting some goals. It doesn't mean that you have to be an absolute, Olympian. It just means like, hey, do something to push yourself, physically, and then do something to push yourself mentally. And this is why that idea of the Red Gym is so beautiful, because you would get the camaraderie of like training with other people. You would get to share ideas in the locker rooms, or even like little seminars off to the side, talking about unions, talking about workers, talking about how we can organize better and take care of each other. And then at the same time, go put some work on the bag, or like hit the mats or something like that, lift some weights. And that kind of stuff right there, it builds community. And that's really what we should be about. So I think that's a really great idea. If you do that, I will move to Iowa or wherever to do that. You're not far. I think you're like 4 hours away. So yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. I mean, it's a dream right now, but it would be so awesome. Like, it's so fun to think about. And you hear, your whole life, or for me, my whole life, I heard this conception of people on the left as being these snowflakes. And my whole life, I had watched the Soviet Union, and this is Alexander Karelin, the greatest Greco-Roman wrestler of all time from the Soviet Union, just beat the crap out of the Americans, and it would make me so mad. Like, why do we keep losing to these communists? And then now I'm getting into politics, and people try and portray the left like we're weak, and it's like, huh? And but I also
it's like, excuse me? Yeah.
Yeah, like, show me I'm weak. But I also got called out for being like fat phobic because I was talking about how McDonald's pumps us full of garbage, but I was kind of, placing the blame and being kind of condescending towards people who are bigger. And that's not what that's not what we're saying. We're saying is, like you said, mind, body, and soul is important, and keeping your body in good shape will help you feel better. It'll help your mind work better, and exercising is good for you. And that's something we want to encourage. And like kind of being virtuous. That was something Che was huge on, and he would run miles and miles and miles when they were training to get on the grandma and go to Cuba, and he was obviously practicing his shooting and stuff. Obviously, it's a different situation now. I'm not saying we're about to do the Cuban Revolution here, but, keeping yourself in shape is not a bad thing. And exercising is good for you, and it's good for your brain, too.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I had a similar issue on one of my lives recently. I was talking about, because I was cooking during my live, I was just having like 3 fillets of fish, just grilling them up. And someone asked me like what I eat, and I was like, I try to avoid carbs and sugar if I can, just because it doesn't do a whole lot for me. Like, I still have them, but like not very much. And then there was someone on my live that was like, hey, make sure you're not promoting bad body image. And I was like, yeah, I'm really not, though. I'm not saying that you're weak for doing this thing. I'm just saying, for me, like, I will try to avoid, like you were talking about, like McDonald's, which is it is, guys, make no mistake, like, McDonald's is the most capitalist infrastructure that has been designed to literally keep you addicted and to keep you like to these things that will eventually kill you. It's not even about like being fat or not. These are cancerous things that they put into their food. So I'm not saying have never had McDonald's, of course, every now and then, but I'm just saying I agree with you on the McDonald's spectrum, especially after I watched the movie The Founder. Holy hell. you guys ever want to learn about like some of the absolute evils of capitalism, watch The Founder and tell me that that is moral. There is nothing moral about that.
I haven't watched that yet. I saw it the other day.
It'll make you mad, Eddie.
Really?
It'll make you, yeah, because it's all about how McDonald's became an entity, right? And initially it was just a small private-owned business with like two brothers, and then they kind of got thrust into. And if I may say, when McDonald's first started out, it was like these two brothers and their workers, and they paid their workers really well. They didn't want a franchise because they owned their own means of production. They literally did. Like, we own it, our workers are a part of it, and we just operate this small little shop, right? And then Ray Kroc comes along, and a fitting name, comes along, and yeah, basically it's like, you know what, we need to franchise this thing. He starts spreading around the country, and eventually through means that you see in the movie, he seizes like all the ownership, and they lose everything, and he gains everything. So yeah,
that's crazy.
Pretty terrible. Yeah,
classic capital. That's the same thing. What was the Facebook movie? The Social Network. It was all about how like Zuckerberg screwed everyone over to monopolize or consolidate power and control the company. I had a doctor growing up. She was a female chiropractor, survived cancer by like going to Mexico and like doing all these juice fasts. Pretty crazy stuff, but she would keep a McDouble in her office, like in a glass case, to show like how long it would last without going bad. And the last time I saw her, it had been 3 years, and this thing still looked like a McDouble that you would order. That's how many preservatives are in.
That's disgusting to think about.
It's terrible, and like, it's not fat phobic, I don't think, to say that that is poison, like that, or close to poison. Like,
I don't even care. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't even care about the weight at that point. I care about like what kind of carcinogens are in that. Like, that may not make you fat. If you have a fast metabolism, it won't make you fat. But at the same time, like, it's not good for you. Like, I mean, it's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff like cocaine's not good for you either. You know, it's like, what do we want to do? So like, I mean, like, it's not always fat phobic, you know. And I feel like there should be a thing, and I've said it before too in real life, and I deal with it at my school at the University of Michigan. There's a huge difference between like Rad Lib and leftists. And I hope people kind of get that. As a leftist, we're trying to improve the material conditions of the workers and of the working class that surrounds us. And we try not to get hung up on like buzzwords and certain things like that. Be careful of our speech, of course. But what is the intent? What is the point? What are we trying to accomplish? Like that should be one of the top things. Really funny side note. One time I was referencing a book that you've referenced in one of your TikToks before by Vijay Prashad, The Darker Nations. And at the top it says, People's History of the Third World. And that's like on the cover. And I've read that. I'm loaning it out to a friend right now. But I like referenced that about the third world. And I had someone correct me in class and said, excuse me, that's extremely disrespectful. And that's a very obnoxious term to call the global south or developing nations. And I was like, okay. I was like, I apologize. But then she complained about me to the teacher and to the professor. And I was like, okay, I apologize. But at the same time, like, I'm referencing a book. And then to be funny, I was like, seriously, I guarantee you I'm further left than you. It's super funny because this student was like a huge Biden stan. And I was like, oh God. So funny stuff.
As Biden's launching missile strikes at Syria, she's offended by the language you're using. And the book is by Vijay Prashad, who's from India. And also, developing nations is a problematic term because that implies that these nations are being allowed to develop when a lot of them are being held in poverty by the United States.
Let's go. Yes, dude. Yes. Yeah, that's really important too. I actually like saying third world because of the fact that I say that not as a discredit to them. I say that as like, we did that to them. Us, the UK, like all these other imperialist nations, like we made them that. And it's more of a discredit to the first tier, whatever you want to call them. I'm very anti-imperialist, and I feel like every Marxist should be. So yeah, it's one of those things, man. And it's definitely interesting at the University of Michigan, where it's very liberal, but you find out real quick that there is a dividing line between like liberal and leftist, and sometimes they try to co-opt that term, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah.
do. I've been using the term socialist more because some of the people I see calling themselves leftists, I'm like, like easy there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call you a leftist yet. Still pretty anti. I don't. Usually, the global South is the countries that or liberals often end up supporting imperialism. But I want to go back to your point about like McDonald's and that we're not trying to be fat phobic and that it's all about your intent, right? And you do got to be careful about your words, but intent's important. And the whole intent is to make the essential industries public, because when you have private ownership of stuff like food, it becomes distorted to the point where they're selling you shakes that there's plastic in the McDonald's shakes. Like this has been proven, and they're just allowed to sell you this. You're
Mm-hmm.
eating plastic because it's private, because it tastes amazing and they can make an insane profit, and you basically get addicted to it, which transitions us to Texas, where privatization of the energy grid, I believe you know more about it than me, so I'm gonna let you go, but it failed Texans. It literally caused people to die. And libertarians are still making these logical arguments about how privatization is better as homeless people are dying. So if you want to talk about
Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend to. Mr. Communist on TikTok is extremely good at this. I'm not going to pretend. I mean, I'm in school full time right now, and I'm student interning. I don't have the resource of time to like fully investigate things. But what I will say from the basics that I've read is that this does show the lack of accountability that goes into privatization, and like that is one of the main concerns. And then we saw that there was this big blame on green energy, saying like, oh, the ice froze all this stuff. A lot of this stuff has been debunked. Basically, what it comes down to me is I'm going to look at it from a broader term. When you privatize things like that, you don't have the accountability. And it really, and I think you've made a TikTok on it, it really comes down to this. When businesses do not care about the working class, they care if you buy. That's what it is. And I hope that the teenagers that see this and things like that, the CEOs of these businesses, they don't care about taking care of people because they don't have to, because they are the only one. And anytime there is something like ERCOT, or however you want to pronounce it, I say ERCOT, is the only monopoly energy business in Texas, and they account to nobody, you're going to have death. And John Scott Won't Stop is a mutual of mine. I work with him on OK High Network on TikTok. He came up with a term called terminal capitalism. And that's what we're dealing with. It's death capitalism. It's you either have the money or you die. I have friends in Texas. I went to high school in Texas. I had a friend send me a Snapchat of her cooking a cheese burrito by a generator with a little heater there. And we're talking that this is just working class families. There was refrigerator trucks there to go pick up homeless bodies in Texas that were left to die because we have a homeless problem in the United States. When I see this stuff, and I don't know, I'm sorry for ranting. When I see this stuff, it should hurt your heart. And I'm talking to people out there when you see this kind of stuff, if you don't have empathy, I need you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, why? You know, I was raised extremely poor. I've been out on the streets before. I was on my own at 18. I had people that took care of me along the way to like help me out, because by myself I had nothing, right? And that's why I have so much empathy for the working class, and that's why becoming a Marxist just seemed natural to me. And that is because you can't tell me that people aren't trying, because they are, but they can't win under this capitalist society. And like they're either going to be a slave to wage their entire life, or they're going to die, or they're going to hit the lottery and somehow, some way, just get their head above water, where it's just enough to where they feel like that they're above working class. And we shouldn't be that way. And we can be better. We literally can be better. We have the resources to be better. And yeah, Texas being privatized is a big deal. And I'm sorry for ranting too long. Pass it back to you. See what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird with the people like Marcus Diopolo. I don't even know where that comes from. If, for people who don't know, this TikTok liberal reporter was talking about Texas, and he was like, enjoy it, Texas. As people were dying, you deserve this because you voted for Trump instead of Joe Biden, or like you voted for this. As people are dying, we used it as an opportunity to be like, this is liberalism. Like, this is what liberalism is about. It's about individualism, shaming people for not voting the right way, as if, as if the Biden administration has done anything to help the people of Texas. And then I want, like, on a theoretical note, I was reading some Lenin the other day, as you do.
As one does.
I think I have State and Rev right here, actually.
Dude, funny joke time. I got this cover because I gave the one that you have to a friend of mine. So I bought a new copy and I showed it to Michael, a friend of ours, Michael. And I was like, yo, dude, I got this cover because I just really like how the cover looks. And he was like, that's some bourgeoisie decadence right there. I was like, come on, man. Like, it's just, you got to have that cover. That's what it's
that
about.
looks sick. I wish I had that cover.
Yeah.
I might give this one away. I was thinking about doing a giveaway for 200K on TikTok, and then I could give this one away.
Yeah, dude, congrats on that, man. Yeah, like it's amazing that you have such a big platform and that you were able to do that by going mask off into your beliefs. And I think the reason why, to those watching, I think the reason why Eddie's able to gain so much is not only is he based in facts, but like that Eddie is the culmination of what we're supposed to be about. And that's like caring about the working class and caring about people and wanting to make the world a better place. You said it in your one of your TikToks after you debated with a certain libertarian, like, why do you get into politics? Do you do it to like win debates, or do you do it because I want to help people? And like that's really what we should be about. So you were talking about Marcus Diopolo, though. Sorry, my bad.
Oh no, you're good. I appreciate that, and I'm lucky. I'm 23, you and I are a little bit older. There's a lot of kids on TikTok, so it's like I got to remind myself sometimes that some of these people are like 16, so they're still growing and learning.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, so Lenin talks about how as the capitalists monopolize, you essentially have planned production. So at the time, there were like social democrats and opportunists, people who were claiming to be Marxists, who were saying, the monopolization of capital is good because these monopolies will create a plan similar to the plan we want to create under socialism. And Lenin was like, no, it's still capitalism. Basically, the social democrats were making the libertarian argument of this is not real capitalism anymore. And Lenin's like, no, this is just a different stage of capitalism. You just have a capitalist who's monopolized a huge thing. And yes, they'll have a plan, rather than competition in a free market, but their plan is going to be what makes them the most money. So you have all the power lines go down in Texas, and then demand for power is up, and they're upping everyone's prices. Whereas we want that to be publicly owned so that they're, keeping prices as low as possible. Whatever it takes to run it is all that, it should cost people. There should be no profit involved at all. And then when a pandemic happens like that, or when something happens like a climate change induced storm, which we're going to see more and more of, we can ration the electricity in a way that keeps the lights on for as many people as possible and doesn't allow people to die. And we have, people dying because they're homeless and tons of empty homes because landlords function the same way.
Yeah.
And like, that's the importance of, not to get into talking about like what a utopian socialism would look like, but you can maybe have some like consumer markets with worker-owned co-ops or whatever, but these essential industries, things like power and housing, like these need to be public. And if Texas doesn't prove that to you, I don't really know what will, other than the climate storms that we're going to see for the next rest of existence.
Well, yeah, to play into that a little bit is it goes back to what side are you going to choose of a revolutionary or a reactionary, right? Because I looked at Texas, and there's some positives that came from that, and I'll get into that in a second. But when I look at the Texas situation, you have a choice right down there. I think every person had a choice to be like, we need to fix this, which is the revolutionary style idea of like, this isn't working, we have to fix it. Or you can be a reactionary and try to defend it, which is what I saw libertarian after libertarian after libertarian do on TikTok, was try to make excuses and try to debunk and try to put together a string of arguments and cherry picks to try to say, look, no, that's not what happened. you're a reactionary at that point to me. You're not looking for an actual solution. You're telling me that everything's okay and that it's okay that people died because you have the evidence to prove it. And I look at material conditions and practicalities. I look at, what do I see? Because that's what matters. At the end of the day, what matters here? Do I see my students that are hungry or tired and can't make it to class because they're working? And do I see people dying on the side of the street? Yeah, that's what I see. How can we fix that? And I think to move into like the positive light, and I'm sure maybe you saw it too on TikTok. I feel like when Marcus did that, it was a blessing and a curse. It was a curse because I'm like, holy cow, like I almost cussed, sorry. I was like, holy cow, like how do you have that take? And you watched that and you said that's a good take. And then you doubled down on it by the second video and saying like, thank you to my new followers. I feel like I saw a lot of TikTokers that identified as liberals see that and go, wait a minute, this isn't me. Where do I need to go? Because I got DMs about it. I'm sure you probably got DMs about it. People going like, wait a minute, like, how do I get away from this? Because I can't go right and I can't stay here, and it would be like, have you heard of socialism?
Exactly. That was the whole point of my video I made about it. I'm like, I don't care about Marcus Diapola. I care about bringing his fans over to socialism. And like, we're talking about TikTok a little bit, so sorry if you don't care about TikTok, but I'm sure most of our viewers are probably here from there. But
yeah,
like, people like American Hannah and Victoria Hammett have now like come out and said they're socialists, and people
JD
like,
Khan too, a guy named JD Khan.
oh really, him too?
Mm-hmm.
There's three prominent people, and that, some people are trying to take credit for their radicalization, like some of our people, like, oh, I'm the one who got them to go left. But what really got them to go left is how condescending liberals are about the material conditions. They see people die and they're like, oh, don't really care, should have voted for Biden. And, people, these younger people who do actually care about the material conditions are like, what? And now we have all these loudmouth prominent socialists, whereas, in the past, I don't know if that was always the case. So, it's great to see. And TikTok's a crazy platform for radicalizing people.
It really is, and I think the reason why is because TikTok is again a blessing and a curse, and a dichotomy of it's toxic, but it also is incredibly helpful. The amount of friends that I've made through TikTok that I haven't met in real life, that I feel like I am brothers and sisters with, what have you, it doesn't matter. We talk like every day. You're in that group chat with us. I talk in there every day to my friends in there, and growing and learning from each other. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And yeah, I jokingly take credit for some of those creators when they move further left. I'm like, that's right, I made a video on you. So, but yeah, it's all good fun. At the end of the day, it's all about hey, like, and this could merge into our next thing. At the end of the day, I think people that are tired of like the two-party system and are tired of left and right, like, move over to us, because I literally don't care about Republican or Democrat. I care about working class. That's what I care about. We make up the majority of this nation. I care about the working class. What I will tell you is that the right's not going to help you. Right? That's how I'm like, listen, the libertarians and the conservatives are not going to help you. We'll actually help you. But I don't care. Like, I am not going to, and you made a TikTok on it, so maybe you could explain it better. But I'm not going to shun you because you were raised conservative. I will if you're like a fascist. That's different. But you said it in your TikTok. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit?
It'd be nice for me to talk about it on here so I can make the distinction too. So I say we need to see things in terms of class and not left and right? Because left and right doesn't even mean anything in this country. It's the left and right is political theater. It's the liberal democracy. You have the Democrats versus the conservatives, and you're supposed to think of that as left and right. And instead, we should think of things in class terms. Working class versus those who own, the masses versus the few, the masses who work, the few who plan production and who collect the profit off of all the work while not actually doing any work themselves. And people, the obvious accusation there is, oh, well, that's class reductionist. Why would you try and radicalize Trump supporters or bring Trump supporters to socialism? One, like you said, I'm not saying recruit fascists. So here's my answer to the class reductionism thing. If you are like a paleo leftist, or if you're like anti people of
Paleo
color,
anything,
racist,
honestly.
what?
Paleo anything, honestly. I hear paleo, I'm like, whoa.
But if you're so the working class is made up of every race, creed, ethnicity, and belief system you can imagine. So if you're bigoted, then you're not pro-working class, and you're not, one of the people I'm saying to bring into the fold. And people are like, well, why would you go and recruit Proud Boys? And then other like paleo leftists are like, we need to recruit Proud Boys. Like Kosher and I talk about this all the time. Half the country doesn't vote. Go talk to them. Don't go talk to the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys are literally racist. Who cares? Go talk to 50% of Americans who are disillusioned from politics because they know it doesn't affect their everyday lives.
Yes, it's so spot on too. And I feel like, and honestly, and we're both Midwest boys, and like we can attest to that. A lot of people around us like have been raised to think a certain way, and they think like conservatives are for them. That's the only reason they're so reactionary towards the left. There's a difference between someone who's raised conservative and someone who is vehemently Trump 2024 type personality. There's a difference, right? And that's because a lot of us come from blue collar families, and the Republicans they won the rhetoric war like a long time ago about like, oh, we're the party of the working class. I mean, no, you're not, but they painted themselves that way, right? So a lot of people just blindly follow that. So I feel like, and I can honestly say after the Marcus thing, and this is not hyperbole, I had several messages and comments. I made a couple videos after it of conservatives coming to me and being like, could you give me some reading recommendations or something, because I don't know what to believe anymore. And that's exactly what you need, right? I even made a video. I had a neocon, a self-identified neoconservative come in there and be like, I want to hear more about what your side has to say. So I set them up with a reading list, and there's a video on it. And it's just, it's one of those things where a lot of people are confused right now, and a lot of people are hurting. And because we're make no mistake, viewers or whoever's out there, this is the last throes of capitalism. I don't know if it's going to last 10 years. I don't know if it's going to last 50. But I can tell you this, what is going on right now cannot exist. The wealth disparity between the classes right now in the U.S. is higher than it was during the French Revolution in France. That's something like people have killed over this. And we're hurtling towards that point unless something changes. So that's why back to libertarians, I'm like, what are you advocating for? I don't know. like what you guys want obviously is not working. And then they go, well, this isn't what we want. I'm like, okay, so libertarian ideology, you want to put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube, and it doesn't, you can't. Like, it's like the free market as you guys want it cannot exist right now. Like it's absolutely impossible. So
right, the only way you have a free market is if it's like insanely well regulated. Like we were saying, if you had like, some kind of worker-owned co-op situation where there was a private market, or even you could look at what China has, but even their market, they constantly have to crack down on it because it grows so much, it's always threatening to get out of control. That's just the nature of markets. And like libertarianism is just the opposite of Marxism. Marxism is like, let's look at things as they are, how they exist in reality, materialism, and how those things got their genesis. So everything, has evolved from a certain place. How did private property come to be? How did the state come to be? How did capitalism come to be after feudalism, and slave society? Whereas libertarianism is just like, I think it should be like this. I'm going to argue that it should be like this, and everyone else is dumb. Like, okay.
You're an idiot. Yeah. The amount of people that are like libertarians are like, oh my God, like, please stop. No, there's a few in real life libertarian friends that I have that I've talked to. And it's a lot of it is fear. And I mean that. A lot of it is their fear of losing their individualism. And they don't understand what communalism means. And they think we want to strip away their personal identity. And I've been working on, one of my best friends is a libertarian. And he is slowly inching left, but I'm getting him there. And basically, he has this fear that like you guys want to take away our individual freedoms, and it's like, no, we're trying to keep the individual freedoms from hurting the community. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. It's like, we're not taking away your personal belongings. Like, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to think how you want, worship how you want. We're not taking anything like that. It's just that when the individual liberty starts to encroach on the safety of the community, that's where we have to draw the line there, because you have these CEOs and you have these mega, like, Lex Luthor types that are controlling markets and controlling politics and controlling regulations that absolutely do kill people. And that's, you know, if I had to sum it up with that, it's like, that's what we're against, not you, Jesse. Like, you're a college student. I'm not after you. Like, God dang it, man. It's really funny because they immediately shift it. Eddie, I don't know if you've seen it, but they immediately shifted. They think like, oh, you're after me. I'm like, no, you work at Wendy's. Like, I'm not after you. It's really funny how that works. So yeah.
That's hilarious. It's true. It's like, no matter what kind of society we have, you are an individual existing within a collective, and there's a collective existing within an individual. You have a society that you live in, and you're an individual. So what kind of collective do you want to exist in? Do you want to be an individual existing within a collective where the vast majority of people are exploited by a small minority who live in vast luxury, or do you want to live in a collective where we take care of each other and where we take care of the planet? And it's like, you can still, that provides more individualism. If I didn't have to go to work 40 hours a week to make sure that I can keep a roof over my head, I would have a lot more time to make videos and read books and allow myself to flourish. And same with every other person who's exploited, because the mass of society is exploited. Not only that, we know the mechanisms of capitalism are made to drive workers down even further. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we're the richest country on earth. And this is just how the system's built. Is that really the collective society that allows individuals to flourish? It's one that leaves 78% of them living paycheck to paycheck in the wealthiest country on earth? Like, no, that's absurd.
I would say that we're living in like a second Gilded Age, right? I would say that the United States is this gilded thing of, wow, look at their GDP. And then you study it and you're like, it's a service economy, though. It's a service industry. That's where our GDP is coming from, you idiots. Like, it's not innovation. We're a service industry nation. And on top of that, like you said, we have to pay for so many things. The one that really shocks me is these teenagers, right? These teenagers, especially on TikTok, these really just gung-ho libertarians. And I'm like, okay, when you get out on your own and you start paying taxes and you start becoming a worker and you have to pay healthcare, your cell phone bill, your gas bill, your electric bill, your water bill, your rent, your renter's insurance, and you start having your car insurance, your car note, you start having to pay for all that stuff. Tell me then you're okay.
Yo, my disk space unfortunately ran out, so we had to cut the podcast with Jay a little bit short, but we will definitely be having him on again. He was a great person to talk to. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, definitely want to have him back on, and hopefully this shows you we truly are a working class organization over here at Midwestern Marx, and we truly do need to raise enough money so that I can have a portable hard drive and no longer run out of disk space. But that just gives us more topics to talk about on the next podcast with Jay. Hopefully we'll get Carlos on with him. Got a lot of other stuff coming up soon. Also going to be doing a podcast with Cormac, who you all might know from TikTok. Great Irish comrade. Going to be talking about a couple ideas, and he's also joining Midwestern Marx. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you guys and gals, or whatever gender identity you choose. Peace.